Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Phil Griffiths. I'm the chair of the Recreation Commission for the town. Welcome this evening to our Rideout Park subcommittee meeting. We're here to discuss primarily the issues around our options for redoing the tennis courts and pickleball courts and the basketball courts at Rideout Park, and we're looking for your input onto which direction we should go with that. I'd like to start this evening by introducing the team from Recreation and our colleagues at Public Works who have been working on this project. Again, my name is Phil Griffiths. I'm the chair of the Recreation Commission.
My name is Daniel Rodriguez. I'm the Recreation Commissioner.
Daniel Rodriguez, Recreation Commissioner.
This is fun. Lee Jackson, Recreation Director, and welcome, and I'm so happy to see you.
I'm Maggie Ledoux. I'm the Community Engagement Manager.
Jess Porter, Assistant Town Manager.
Hi, I'm Marty Hutchinson, Rec Supervisor.
I'm Bob Beatty, Recreation Operations Manager.
DJ Fumiani, Assistant Director of Recreation.
Thank you. This is the team that has been sort of discussing this issue and trying to figure out which direction to go. So what we're going to do this evening, we're going to start with a presentation from our consultants at a company called Activitas, who have been very helpful to us. Mark Novak and Megan Donahue will do a presentation about the options that we have been looking at and some of the pros and some of the opportunities that present to us. And then we will have a opportunity for questions and answers, technical questions of the consulting team. Then we'll close that sort of Q&A and presentation, and then we'll have a public comment period where you can express your opinions, let us know what you think about the various options that we have. Just to give you a little background on the project, the courts, the tennis, basketball, pickleball courts at both Rideout Park and Emerson Park are clearly in need of some significant repairs. I think we all recognize that. When we went out to look at the conditions of the various courts, we found that the courts at Rideout were in significantly more need of repair than the ones at Emerson. So we're going to first take on the courts at Rideout. And probably around this time again next year, we'll consider doing the same at Emerson. But that'll be a further project. Rideout's in much worse shape, so that's where we're going to start. This project, depending on which alternatives we use, what kinds of surfaces, you'll hear a little bit more about that, will cost somewhere, believe it or not, between $800,000 and $1.3 million. It's not a cheap prospect to completely replace and redo these courts. They're at a status now that that's what needs to happen. We can no longer go in and just paint some black asphalt on there and hope that they maintain. They need complete replacement. So it's a not inexpensive proposition. The lower end of that, yes, we're going to replace the whole thing. The lower end of that option is if we use standard asphalt. The higher end of that option is to use something called high tension concrete. Post-tension concrete, excuse me. The significant difference being the asphalt is less expensive, has about a 5 to 10 year life and requires a lot of maintenance. The concrete has about a 25 to 30 year life. Over the long term, it would save us more money to actually do it with the more expensive upfront option. Yeah, it saves us quite a amount of money. The way they're currently asphalt. Yeah. The project will be funded from a couple of different sources. We have some funds that town meeting approved back in 2019. And there is also some funds from the ARPA funds that are in there. We're going to put in some funds from the Recreation Revolving Fund. It's sort of a one-time opportunity that we have with some funding from Recreation to invest in some smaller infrastructure projects. So we're taking that opportunity to do it. We have put in a request to the community preservation funding for that delta that would allow us to do the high tension concrete, right? Which is about somewhere to $400,000 to $500,000. It depends, and we're all guessing at prices as it stands right now, but our consultants have been guiding us, and we put in that request to CPC to fund the difference. If for some reason that CPC funding is not approved, we will go ahead and do the lower end option with the asphalt because the courts need to be done, all right? We anticipate this project will take sort of 2 to 3 months, and we plan to start it in the summer to fall of next year. It takes a long time for this stuff to cure and do it, so that's a generous amount of time, but it could be a 2 to 3 month project starting next summer into next fall. As we get closer to the date, we'll keep people up to date. The primary reason that we are here this evening is when we redo the tennis and pickleball courts at Rideout, we have an option for changing the current configuration of the courts that are there. There are currently 3 tennis courts with 6 temporary or overlined pickleball courts there. As many of you know, pickleball is growing significantly in popularity. We have an opportunity, should we choose to take it, to convert some of those tennis courts, all of those tennis courts, or none of those tennis courts to permanent dedicated pickleball facilities so that you don't have to change the courts in and out, etc. You'll hear from Mark and his team at Activitas about the options that we have been looking at and what they would entail and what they will look like. So no further ado, that's what we'll be looking for your public comment on tonight. You'll hear from Mark. He'll have about a 15 to 20-minute presentation. We'll have 15 minutes for technical questions about the concrete and the various things like that. And then we'll come back for public comment in which you can talk to the Recreation Commission about which option you think we should take. No, not at this time. Not at this time. We're not talking about expanding the footprint of what's going on now in either place. From a technical, from a bureaucratic process, this is a subcommittee of the Recreation Commission. We're going to hear your comments, process them, and we will make a recommendation back to the full Recreation Commission sometime probably later this fall. And then the process will go through, and we'll hopefully be able to start the project next summer and fall. So, anything I forgot? All right. On that note, with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Novak from Activitas to walk us through some of the options and the various things. We can do. We can give you the details of that if you want. Sure.
We have some pre-approved money for this project, and I did not put a slide together for it, so I'll share it quickly. And you can come see me afterwards if you want more information. I'll be happy to answer that. Recreation is set aside $392,000 in the revolving fund. We have ARPA funds that were voted. I don't have the year with me, but it may have been 2023. Town meeting also voted money assigned for this project. It was $108,000. The ARPA funds were $130,000. And then we do plan to go to the CPC and ask for the post-tension concrete monies.
All right. On that note, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Thanks, Phil. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Novak. I'm design principal with Activitas. We're a landscape architecture and civil engineering firm based out of Dedham. We are a niche landscape architecture and civil engineering firm that specializes in recreational and athletic facilities, specifically in the Commonwealth, but all across New England, and in fact, if the project's right, we've done many projects across the United States and also around the world. We're very fortunate and happy to be here with you tonight to talk about the work that we're doing with the town of Concord. Matt, do we have the presentation up? Next slide, please, Matt. So just a quick agenda of what we're going to be talking about tonight. I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce Megan Donahoe. Megan is a landscape architect in our office, and she'll be talking about the conceptual design options once we get through the site analysis and how we got to this point. So first, the introductions, which we just did. Existing conditions, I'll explain a little bit about our review of the existing courts over at Rideout and how we came to the determination that they're kind of reached the end of their useful life. Site analysis, basically what we saw out there in the court setting, how it looks in terms of how many cracks, what's the linear footage of crack repairs that currently has been done out there. Also other things like solar orientation, prevailing winds, stuff like that. Megan will talk briefly about the 3 conceptual options, and for your information, afterwards, if you want to get up and take a closer look at it, there's 3 boards in the back. Please feel free to get up and take a closer look at those layouts. And then at the end, I'll close it with the thing that people are usually most interested in is how much could this renovation, how much should the town expect to pay for the renovation? So next slide, please, Matt. So next slide. So when we went out there, it was about a year ago now. It was just after Thanksgiving, I believe. And we took a look at both the courts at Rideout and over at Emerson. And as Phil mentioned, tonight we're talking specifically about the courts at Rideout. And we noticed that, again, they've fallen into quite a level of disrepair. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see an image, a lot of spider cracking and the surfacing coming up. And as we move from page left to page right, puddling specifically on the southern end of the courts where water is not quite draining off the surface and into the batting cage areas. It's tending to just bird bath right in that area. And that's signalizes to us that not only are we having some surface drainage issues, but also some settlement issues in the asphalt base. Cracks throughout the existing patchwork, so there's a bunch of patchwork on the site. And we'll get into that a little bit more when we get into the site analysis. There's seam cracks, so around the foundations of not only your existing fence posts, but also the net posts for the tennis. You can see where there's a little bit of heaving coming from the concrete, and that's reflecting up through the surface of the asphalt, and then in turn through the surfacing, the acrylic surfacing of the tennis court. Seam cracks have been repaired in a number of areas, but anytime you repair an asphalt court where you're experiencing cracking, you can really only expect that to last 1, maybe 2 years at best. It's a Band-Aid. And these courts are about 20 years in age, and you really can't expect asphalt courts to last any longer than that. And asphalt in general will not last much longer than 20 years. You know, if you had a track, so let's take tennis courts off the table for a minute. You had a track which typically has an asphalt base under it. After 20 years, you're going to see that track start to fail, just because asphalt is not made to stand the test of time. And that's why Phil and Lee touched on it earlier. We're also going to talk to you tonight a little bit about post-tension concrete, which we're doing a lot of at the municipal level these days for tennis and pickleball court facilities in some of your peer municipalities. Next slide, please. Next slide. So site analysis. We went out there and we identified and located every single crack and failure in the surface. So right now we have approximately 510 linear feet of cracks in the tennis courts at Rideout. About 175 linear feet of those cracks have been repaired, but those repairs are now failing. So really don't have to go too much further than that, because your asphalt is, for the lack of a better term, cooked. It's done. So it's time for that to be pulverized in place and redone with a new base. Around the edges, you see the dotted lines around the edges. That's your existing fencing. The existing fencing in the proposed designs that Megan will get into, you're seeing some of the foundations from the fence posts heave up through the surfacing. The fencing is in fair shape, but really when we're talking about a wholesale renovation of the facility, it's more cost effective to replace the fencing. And those foundations have to obviously come out. So you can't really keep the existing fencing. We'll do our best to recycle all the fence posts and rails. And then obviously the rest of the materials will have to be ground up like the concrete foundations and sent to a batching plant. Can I do a quick poll of the room? In terms of tennis versus pickleball, could you raise your hand if you're here in support of pickleball? And what about tennis? Oh, we got 4. We got 2 feet and 2 hands over here. Okay, great. No, yeah, we're not suggesting that. Yep. I just wanted to get, out of curiosity, I was curious where things stood. So just to wrap up the site analysis discussion, as you can see, the kind of blue highlighted areas, it doesn't read super well on the green, but down on the southern end of the courts, wrapping around on the eastern end, is where we were seeing that puddling and bird bathing of materials. The entire net line is kind of heaving and unstable in terms of cracking. And then the rest of the orange lines are where we saw significant cracking. The orange lines that are highlighted in yellow are the areas where we've seen crack repair. And as I mentioned earlier, those crack repairs are failing. Closer? That better? Okay. Up in the right-hand corner is a symbol that we show for solar orientation. So here in the Northeast, typically about a north-south orientation for both pickleball and tennis is what you're looking for. Here we're a little bit northeast to southwest. Not a bad orientation. And the idea here is that we're going to mimic the existing layout and renovate in kind. So you'll maintain the orientation of your courts. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Megan. Megan's going to talk to you quickly about the three conceptual options that we've developed. And then when she's done with that, then I'll get back up and I'll explain a little bit about how we arrived at the cost opinions for each of the options.
Hello. Next slide, please. So throughout our design process, we often referred back to the USA Pickleball / American Sports Builders Association Pickleball Construction Manual. They outline and highlight the standards for recreation, competitive play, elite play, and stadium court levels of play. So we, next slide, please. This is option one. It looks a lot like what the court looks like today. We kept the existing court footprint and are maintaining the 3 tennis courts as well as lining for 6 pickleball courts. The 3 tennis courts will have new tennis net posts, netting, and center straps, and the 6 pickleball courts will have portable nets, so nothing permanent there. And there will be new perimeter chain link fencing and gates matching the existing sizes and locations. So there's currently 10-foot high chain link fence, perimeter fencing, and there's 2 single gates, both page north on both sides of the court. And then we will also be repaving the asphalt walkway that will be disturbed during the court construction. Next slide, please. So option 2 highlights pickleball use and still keeping the footprint of the existing courts, but now you see that is striped for 8 pickleball courts, and these will be permanent courts with new pickleball net posts, netting, and center straps. And there is divider chain link fencing between the top and bottom rows of the court. That chain link fence can range from 4 to 6 feet high. And then the perimeter fencing will also match the existing size as well as the gate locations. And then this will also have a new asphalt walkway. Next, please. And then our third option, still keeping the footprint of the existing courts. This option keeps 1 tennis court and then includes 6 permanent pickleball courts with that divider fence line between the top and bottom row. All of these courts will have permanent net posts, netting, and center straps. And like the other options, this will include new perimeter chain link fencing and gates as well as a new walkway. And then I'll turn it back over to Mark to talk about costs for each of these options.
Go ahead. Not in option 3. We weren't currently proposing to do that in option 3. So next slide, please, Matt. Cost-wise. So as I explained earlier, the process that we anticipate going through is going out, removing the existing chain link fence and posts and foundations, pulverizing in place the current asphalt. So we reuse that. It gets incorporated down into the base. And then everything gets rolled, proof-rolled, compacted to appropriate levels. We'll have compaction tests performed on that base to make sure everything's stable. And then in the top part, earthwork and quartz, that shows costs for grading and for asphalt. Down below, you'll see add alternates. Add alternates if we were to put conduit around the edges, if we ever wanted to do some low-level tennis and pickleball lighting. And then the other add alternate is if we were to upgrade your base from asphalt to post-tension concrete. So if I could take a minute just to explain the differences between asphalt and post-tension concrete. Asphalt, as Phil mentioned earlier, is not the same product that it used to be. The expected lifespan of asphalt is much less these days because of the way it's being manufactured. There's a lot of recycled and processed materials in asphalt, and there's a big issue with a challenge with asphalt quartz these days that's called strip cracking. Strip cracking is very thin cracks that don't expand too far that actually reflect up through the acrylic surfacing. Excuse me. The strip cracking doesn't happen on every asphalt court, but you can't guarantee when it's going to happen and when it isn't going to happen. So one of the things that we do with our asphalt courts is we propose putting a fiberglass sheet over the entire surface of the asphalt to help resist that strip cracking. So there's an added cost that's built into the court number there at $245,000 for that fiberglass sheet. I wouldn't recommend doing a municipal court these days in asphalt without doing that fiberglass sheet over it. Now, even with the fiberglass sheet, 12, maybe 15 years, absolute maximum is anything that I would recommend or expect to get out of a court like that. In terms of post-tension concrete is something that's gained a lot of popularity in the court business over the past, I would say, 6 to 10 years. And because it's gotten so much popular in the construction end, yes, it's more expensive, but the amount of, it's so durable, more and more municipalities. It used to be just at the college and university level, and then courts that are built over compromised soils. So if you were expecting any kind of settlement or anything like that, post-tension concrete acts as one unified slab, so it can almost float over the top. Parking in a parking garage, if you're driving over the Zakim Bridge, those spans are all post-tension concrete. So every 12 to 18 inches, there's a tension cable that gets laid down on the base before the concrete pour. When the concrete comes in, they laser screed everything out, and after 7 hours of curing, 24 hours of curing, they tension those cables to a certain pound per square inch. After that first tension, then they wait 7 days for additional curing, and then a second tension is pulled. And what that does is it compresses all the concrete and creates this one uniform slab. Post-tension concrete is warranted by the contractor that installs it for 25 years. Now, that's not to say that it's maintenance-free, because it's not. Over time, you'll have to come in and redo the acrylic surfacing on the top. But you shouldn't see cracking, depressions, failures in that surface. If you do, then you have a claim against the contractor to have that slab replaced or repaired. So again, over time, it's in our humble opinion, it's a wiser investment of your tax dollars. So just really running through the slide here, site preparation, all that demo stuff, about $45,000, earthwork, $40,000. The courts, that's all the stuff that you're concerned about, the base, the acrylic surfacing, the nets, the foundations associated with those at $245,000. Site improvements like handling the walkway, loam and seating around the edges, another $7,000. And then just general contingencies. We carried a 15% contingency on the project because this is very conceptual in nature. As the project goes through design, our contingency number gets lower because it's very rare that once you get into detailed design that you're realizing that the project is less expensive. You're always running into unknowns. And one of the things that we'll do as a consultant on this project is actually go out and test the existing base out there. So we'll do some geotechnical explorations just to make sure that the existing base underneath, once we pulverize that asphalt, is suitable for construction on top. And if it isn't, then we'll have to do some other ground improvement methods to make it suitable, and that's why we have the 15% contingency at this point. Yes, sir. Not at this point, but we will. And like I said, the contingency, that 15% contingency is there to protect the project cost, the project budget from unforeseen conditions. The initial project cost, so with asphalt, with that fiberglass sheet, and with acrylic surfacing, we're at roughly $500,000. You add in conduit, and conduit's always a wise investment, whether or not the town wants lights or not. It's better to do it now once you have everything torn up. For the cost of some, PVC pipe in the ground, it's better to do it now than have to come back in the future and trench up all around the perimeter of the courts. So add alternate for $27,000 on the conduit, and then the add for post-tension concrete is roughly $393,000. For a grand total, if you went with PT courts at $924,000 for option one. Next slide, please. All these numbers are in the same ballpark because this is really kind of an in-kind replacement. Really, the only difference is maybe if we go all pickleball, like option number two, we're adding some fence in between the banks of courts. And we're going to have some more foundations for net posts and center struts. So in this option, for the initial project, again with asphalt, we're at $530,000. And then if we go with the alternates, we're up at $950,000. Yes. So right now the costs don't include using any kind of noise mitigation fabric on the fence. The fence will be designed to support it so that in the future, if there is a need for it, then you could perhaps hang noise mitigation fabric on the one side that is facing the abutting properties. Noise mitigation fabric, I've had mixed reviews on it. It doesn't solve, like, if somebody's out there playing pickleball and you're on the other side of the noise mitigation fabric, you still hear it. But it does reduce it slightly. I think they say that it's tested to reduce it by about 20 decibels. Yes. I guess it depends on the amount of use. And
can we let Mark finish the presentation and then do the Q&A afterwards, just so that we can get through all of his slides, and then we can ask that question afterwards.
So almost there. Just one more slide. Next slide, please, Matt. For option three. Thank you. So same exact cost. 6 pickleball, 1 tennis court, and really we're just trading out post foundations for 2 pickleball courts to get slightly larger foundations associated with tennis, and a little bit shorter net. Fencing in between the two courts. So that's generally our presentation. Should we open it now, Phil, to Q&A?
Yes. So we're going to open it now for a Q&A. Probably should have a microphone so that everybody can hear, can actually get recorded. And we'd ask everybody just to state your name and your address here in Concord when you're on asking a question. I want to ask one question before we jump out, just for clarification purposes. Those presentations where you have 6 or 8 of the pickleball courts, that's done at what you call the recreational level scale?
It is. So you'll notice the difference between option 2 and option 3. The 6 pickleball courts in option 3 are a little bit closer together than they are in option 2. So option 2, I believe, Megan, what's the distance between the courts? It's over 12 feet. So for pickleballers, if you're doing an ATP or around the post, you have a decent amount of room. It's almost 17 and a half feet between the pickleball courts and option 2. In option 3, it does narrow down a little bit, but all options meet the recommended recreational play dimensions for pickleball by USA Pickleball.
Thank you.
Also, as we get into comments, when you get the microphone to speak, just please state your name and address for the record as well. Thank you.
Chuck Slagan, 21 Old Mill Road. When you were talking about possibly doing this in the fall, and I understand the curing process, especially for the asphalt that doesn't have anything that's going to help hold it together, is there a problem doing it, I'll say, late in the fall and then going straight into winter with regard to expansion, contraction problems?
It's a great question. So I think the intention is to start the project in May, correct? Like late spring, early summer. So assuming we get a normal summer, we should be in good shape. I think the one problem that we would be concerned about is if the project does drift into fall and late fall, it really comes down to the acrylic surfacing on top. So both the post-tension concrete and the asphalt, either way we go, you have to let that cure for a period of time. It's a minimum 14 days on the asphalt, and we like to see the same on the post-tension concrete. So there'll be a period of time out there during construction where it will seem like the site is idle. And that's for a good reason, because we're letting the materials cure. After that, they have to put the acrylic surfacing on the top, and that's multiple layers. So depending on whether or not we go with asphalt or post-tension concrete, it's a different application process and different amount of layers. With post-tension concrete, there's 4 layers. There's a concrete slurry that goes on top, then a black acrylic resurfacer, and then 2 layers of paint. On the asphalt, there's 3 layers. There's an black acrylic resurfacer, and that handles like all the minor gaps in the asphalt aggregate and any kind of ever so slight depressions from the rolling process, and then the 2 layers of color. The acrylic materials are temperature sensitive. You want to be 50 degrees and rising on the application of those materials. Having said that, we're still doing it now, and we're right on the borderline. You can do it as long as you're doing it appropriately and if you're doing a layer of color, you want to give it at least a full day in weather like we had today to cure before you're going in with the next application. So you get to that time of year when you're dealing with the acrylic surfacing applications, it can be a little touch and go. Last year, we did a post-tension concrete, 2 of them actually, one in Scituate and one in Cohasset. And we had to delay the acrylic surfacing until the following spring when the weather was appropriate. However, those facilities were made usable in that time span by putting down temporary lines. So it wasn't completely done, but they were still usable by the public. That gets your question? Thank you.
Alyssa Brown, 5 Concord Green. 2 questions, actually. Did you consider another option where that tennis court is also striped for pickleball so that there's a potential for 8 pickleball courts when someone's not playing tennis?
You're talking about the third option?
The one with the one tennis court.
It's down.
No, yes, we have looked at that option, and if people want to comment on that, we're welcome to hear comments. The way that we had envisioned it, at least for presentation purposes, for the concepts we developed, was to keep one tennis court primarily for tennis use, so that there's not pickleball taking that one over, and it's always available for tennis. But that's something people can comment on when we get to the public comment period.
All right. And my second question is how would the drainage work? I mean, now it drains nicely to that back corner, sort of, but how would the drainage work with this new scenario?
That was for Mark.
The grades will be adjusted ever so slightly on this because we're going to be recycling the existing asphalt and base in place. The courts are going to come up probably about an inch from their existing elevation, which will provide us positive drainage surface flow off the courts towards the back of the site. But other than that, there's been no additional accommodations for drainage. So, depending on the type of surfacing we go with, post-tension concrete requires a vapor barrier that goes underneath the entire base. So you'll have your graded, compacted stone, and then a vapor barrier before you put your concrete on it. So that's completely protected from any type of surface moisture coming from underneath. And as long as we have the courts higher than the surrounding areas, everything will flow off.
Hi, Carol Kerr, 54 Old Stowe Road. I was going to ask your question. She's right on top of it. But now, do you come back after you've done your work? Is there any warranties on it, or do you come back a year after and check that everything is...
Check that everything's working properly?
Yeah, no cracks, even though it probably takes a few years for those to appear.
Yeah, the cracks would take time to develop. Outside of the strip cracking, I've seen if it's asphalt and you run into a strip cracking issue, I've seen those develop within months of the courts being finished. But yes, go around. We're fortunate enough to be working in a handful of other locations in town. So we're actually putting in a couple of pickleball courts, 6 pickleball courts over at Concord Country Club right now. We're doing some work at Middlesex School, and we're also fortunate enough to be working with the Fenn School. So we're around, and hopefully we'll be looking at Emerson. So
the answer to your question is going to be that's part of the RFP and contracting process in which we would determine what expectations we put on a consultant. And we'll be working in tandem with the folks from Concord Public Works who do a lot of this kind of contracting to figure out what's appropriate and what we'll do with that.
And once the court is done, obviously if there's any kind of issues that the town sees, those immediately get relayed to us. And then we'll reach out to the contractor that constructed the project and have them come out on a warranty claim. So we don't go away. We're like a fungus. You can't get rid of us.
Okay. Martin Kelly, 1354 Main Street. Most of the new facilities I've seen have the fencing between the courts. Mm-hmm. You seem to have only gone with a center one. Why that decision?
So the fencing between the courts requires more space in between the courts before you run into a physical obstruction. And in order to get more courts in the existing footprint, we eliminated it between the courts and kept it just between the banks of 4 to stop balls from moving north to south. Putting them in between the courts, we might have to reduce, if option 2, where it was 8 pickleball courts. It would start to impact play in terms of your ATPs or around the post, and we might have to reduce the amount of courts down to 6, but we haven't specifically looked at that in a lot of detail.
Hi, Earl Smith, 537 Hayward Mill Road. I have a couple questions. First is a suggestion. Before the batting cages were put in, there was at least one gate on the south end of the court. And I think it would be nice if that could be included in the rework. Occasionally a ball will go over that high fence, and it's a long way around, and sometimes those gates are awkward to work with. So if you could consider that. And the other thing is addressing the striping of the, going to option 3, is it? 6+1? Striping that tennis court for pickleball use as well. I think that would be a really good idea. Of course, I'm a pickleball player. I have played tennis. And I think with some kind of prioritization of the rules of the usage of the court, signage showing, if a
Can we hold that for public comment? I'm sorry to make the distinction. I just want to make sure we answer any technical questions. That's more of a public comment for us to hear rather than for Mark to answer. I'm not trying to cut you off and bring it up again when we come to public comment. Would be appreciated. Thank you.
Excellent comment on the gate, though.
Chuck Slagan, 21 Old Mill. On the slope of the courts, right now when you're on the courts, it is pretty noticeable what's there. It's almost like the net is truly higher when you're standing on one side of it. Will the sloping change as you redo it, or are we still going to expect that same kind of sloping?
No, the slope will be all within the recommendations and regulations of the sport, so under 1%.
Mike Carey, 260 Oak Hill Circle. I know nothing about this stuff, your stuff, but I'm wondering whether puddles on a court that's been redone, is that to be expected or is that not to be expected? What should we expect with the new court?
On a brand new court?
Yeah.
So you're playing on a brand new court where you're seeing puddles?
Well, a court that you guys have organized 2 years later, let's say. Should we expect puddles or not? Because right now we've got a lot of puddles.
No. Now, some surface moisture is entirely expected.
Of course.
But, so during construction, once the base is completed, whether it's asphalt or post-tension concrete, we will test it for planarity to make sure that there's no dips and doodles in it. And even after a rainfall, we'll come out and take a look at it before the applications are applied. And one of the tests that we do, and it's super scientific, is drop a nickel in the bird bath. And if the water covers the surface of the nickel, then that needs to absolutely be addressed prior to doing any of the surfacing.
Thank you.
But you shouldn't be seeing any puddles.
Just to know what to expect.
No.
Hi, Ann Scarzy, 33 Maple Street. Just a historical point. I lived on Maple Street when the courts were done last time, and I don't know if anyone on the commission knows, but there was puddling from the very beginning. So I think the contractor, I don't know, we didn't have any recourse. The town didn't have any recourse. I think it's hard to redo courts once you've done them as well. And I don't know if you could tell in your analysis whether they didn't put that layer in, or I just wanted you to know that the puddling was there from the beginning and we had no option to fix it, and maybe it's something in your analysis that will, help you plan for kind of how to avoid it next time.
Thank you. Was it all where you're seeing puddling now, kind of on the southern end?
As was in your diagram, but it was there from the beginning, and just we didn't have any options.
That's good. Good to know. Yeah.
Pat Cross, 80 Concord Street. Pat Cross, 80 Conant Street. I wish the plans are up in front. If you kept the 3 tennis courts and painted those with stripes for pickleball, that would allow you to have 6 pickleball courts?
Correct.
Okay, so that would be like the most dual use that we could get. We'd have 3 tennis courts and 6 pickleball courts.
Correct.
And depending on when people showed up, kind of like we do now, you either play pickleball or people play tennis. Otherwise, the only other way to get more pickleball courts is to take out all the tennis courts and replace them with pickleball courts, and then you get 8. Is that right?
According to our options now, there's another option to do 4 pickleball courts over a tennis court, but you have to rotate them 90 degrees. So your solar orientation for pickleball would not be ideal. You would be more east-west facing, which I can't really recommend. But if you did something like that, you could do 4 pickleball courts on the western court, and you could do 4 pickleball courts on the easternmost court, and then potentially leave the middle court for tennis only. But again, that east-west orientation for pickleball is poor, and it would be a mistake, I think.
But with your plans right now, you have
yes.
3 tennis courts that can be striped for pickleball.
Correct.
And that will give you 6 pickleball courts.
Correct.
Okay. Or the middle option, which is behind me.
6 pickleball courts and 1 tennis.
Right. Okay.
Or all pickleball and you get 8 pickleball. Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all.
Going back to the drainage thing again, I was surprised to hear you say the 1% grade, because that seems to me a fair amount. Does that mean that the balls will always be going down to 1, either that?
1% is fairly shallow. If you go much less than 1%, we've done courts that we won't be 1%. We're actually going to be a little bit below it, because if you go at 1%, then there's no room for error. So typically we go at about 0.83% to try to stay just below the tolerance of 1%. Once you go over 1%, you're out of regulation. But will balls roll? Maybe ever so slowly, but it's really anything less than that, then you're going to start to run into issues with surface drainage on the court.
Is it crowned or a uniform slope?
Uniform slope.
So also, because that back corner has that oak canopy on it, is it possible to slope it towards the parking lot rather than that back corner, which would keep that back corner from getting so slimy? Because it is landscape on that corner.
Yep.
Before
the parking lot.
Yeah, even before the walkway.
Yeah, we could look at that, but that would change the opinion of costs because it would require more fill to pick up the southern end, and it would also potentially change some of our accessible routes. Obviously, want to maintain accessibility to all of your points of entrance, but it's something that we could explore further. Absolutely.
Are there any more technical questions for one last one? And then we'll close the question and answer session and we'll let people comment, give us opinions and suggestions.
Mike Berry, 18 Sweet Birch Lane. I just wanted to comment regarding the spacing between the courts, between options 2 and 3, in that the closer you get these pickleball courts to each other, the more interference you'll have, and that's more likely in the option 3 plan. And I know that looks like a comfortable place to be from a decision-making standpoint, but from a user standpoint, it will be less desirable than the second option.
It is a fair point. I go back to mentioning that it still is within the tolerances from USA Pickleball for separation
We're
between
used
courts.
to wider spacing.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
All right, thank you. We're going to last question over here.
I'm just looking. It's Wendy Ravelli, 42 Bow Street. Just a question. I'm looking at option 3. On the one side of the tennis court, you have 9 feet, and then you have 13 feet to the left on pickleball. So is there an option to maybe put a little more space in between the pickleball courts? If you could come up, use that 4 feet differently.
We might be able to gain another foot, but really what it comes down to is the location of the permanent pickleball net post and the fence post in between the banks of courts, because for tennis you need to have a set distance from the out-of-play line to any kind of physical obstruction. And back to the kind of separation point between the courts, I understand, wanting to have more space for limited interference is what everyone would like to see. We are calling for 11 feet between the courts there, which, 12 feet is the minimum separation for tennis courts. So we do have a decent amount of separation. And USA Pickleball, the minimum separation from the out-of-play line to the next court is only 5 feet. So we're more than double the minimum. They do not. No. Nope.
Right.
With balls coming in, yeah. Agreed. People, yeah.
Does anybody else have any technical questions for Mark? Not comments, but technical questions.
We could look at that.
Martin Kelly, 1354 Main Street. If you're taking up the base and demoing all the fencing, why can't you just make it 2 or 3 feet wider to accommodate a little bit more space?
That's a question for us, and we have made a decision that we're not extending into the green space around in Rideout Park. We're going to keep the same footprint. We don't want to see any extension into what's currently the green
Is that
space.
based on a cost decision?
No, it's based on a policy decision from us, which is not something we wanted to pursue.
Because you don't like that, so you don't want to extend it?
There's a lot of competing uses that happen in those parks, and it's an open space, and we didn't want to take over any larger footprint. Just simple as that.
2, 3, 4 feet. Okay. Thank you.
It isn't out of the question, though, if it went to all pickleball. We do have almost 17 and a half feet between the courts. So putting in a divider fence isn't out of the question there, if we can do it within the project budgets.
Going back to Earl Smith, 537 Hayward Mill Road, going back to option 3, it seems pretty close to the fence on the west side. Right now, there's a bench there, and it's good to have a little free space because you may need to put some placards on the ground for, the rotation. So I'm wondering whether in option 3 you could shift the whole pickleball arrangement maybe 4 feet towards the tennis court, sort of share the space between the tennis court and the pickleball courts between those two, and give us a little more room for a bench on the west side.
A bench within the court complex or outside of the court complex?
Inside the fence.
Yeah, right now there's about 7.5 feet from the out-of-play line to the fence in option 3 for pickleball. We could move the courts slightly towards the tennis, but again, those physical obstructions, we want to make sure that we are showing something, or presenting something that's safe for tennis and for pickleballers. The bench inside of the fence in option 3, I wouldn't recommend. Potentially the bench could be we'll take a look at shifting them slightly to see what we can get.
Yeah. I mean, that fence, for example, between the pickleball courts, that end post could be a hazard for, tennis players, although they aren't normally running next to the net. But if you left that fence where it is now, just shifted the courts a little, it'd still keep the balls from rolling uncontrollably.
Good point.
We're going to close off the Q&A session because we need to let people give their opinions more in the public. One more question. Go ahead.
Marissa Alec Paulo, 163 Belknap. So I'm not a full-on pickleball player. I like it. But my question is, ideally for the first situation with the 3 tennis courts, is that the most ideal for pickleball players as well? Like the spacing, because now everyone's talking about spacing and courts being too close to one another.
I think that's the greatest amount of space for pickleball in between the courts. I think, I'm just guessing, my assumption is pickleball would like more than 6 courts. But the spacing there is comfortable, yes.
Comfortable, okay.
So I think Mark, and thank you very much. It was a very helpful presentation.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate your time.
Really useful. Thank you for answering a number of questions. You can see there's lots of issues for us to consider and lots of things to think about. What we'd like to do now is just get a public comment from folks as to what they think based on what they've heard, what they would like to see there. This is not meant to be a Q&A back and forth because we're not going to have time to answer everybody's single question. So what I'd ask, if you would like to make a public comment, is that you state your name, limit it to 2 minutes, and just let us know what you think based on what you've heard here this evening. And everyone can have a chance to make their comments.
And I'll give one when you have 1 minute left.
I'm gonna just go around the corner. Daniel or other commissioner has a question he wants to ask.
Yeah, I have a question for Mark. Yeah, one question. Yeah. Is there a difference from a technical perspective is there a difference between having dedicated courts for tennis and pickleball and sharing the use? Is there a difference, any advantage or disadvantage from?
For recreational play, not really.
Okay.
Once you get up to competitive play, for example, the MIAA will not allow any kind of postseason tennis matches on facilities that have pickleball stripes. But from recreational play, I think the biggest challenge is scheduling and use.
So at this point, we're going to formally close the presentation session of the evening. Thank you to our team from Activitas. We look forward to working with you more on this stuff in the future. And we're going to open up a public meeting to receive public comment. Again, I would ask that everybody would simply state your name and address here in Concord and offer 2 minutes. I think what we're going to do at the end of the evening, everyone who's made an effort to get out here, you're going to get a little sticky. And just as a straw vote, nobody's holding anybody to this. Put your sticky on one of these things if you prefer one of these options. It's not a definitive answer to anything. It's just a way of saves us having to count people who raise hands and do that sort of thing. But we just like to hear those people who made an effort to get here what they think about what's going on. So we'll start public comment. Please limit it to 2 minutes, and we'll go through what we've got.
I've got one here. Is this on? Cynthia Katz, 20 Conant Street. I heard you say that we're not going to talk about Emerson, but I have real concerns about equity issues across town and that we should be talking about Emerson and Rideout simultaneously. I think both facilities, Emerson and Rideout, should have pickleball and tennis. I would hate to see tennis eradicated from our public courts. I'm also mindful of Envision Concord, which is something that's been seems to be a guiding principle in Concord. So the idea that somebody who lives close to Emerson should have to get into a car to drive to West Concord to Rideout to play pickleball seems ridiculous to me, just like someone who lives near Rideout would have to go to Emerson to play tennis. It seems going against what we're talking about in Concord, and the values that we have espoused and seem to care about. So I am in favor of option 1 only because I think it gives us more flexibility, and I think that it maintains the possibility of tennis in West Concord, which the other two don't. So thanks.
Thank you.
And I'm a pickleball person.
Hi, I'm Jean Easterday, 48 Maple Street, and I echo those sentiments. And I guess I feel like I missed a meeting because I'm just curious, has the Recreation Department, and I'm sure you have, done a study around the need in Concord? Like how many classes do we offer for tennis or pickleball? What is the need? What are people looking for both Emerson and Rideout? It feels like we do need more of a comprehensive plan for the town as opposed to shoehorning into Rideout first and then doing something for Emerson later. So a comprehensive plan would be something that I would recommend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Kristen Harding, Assabet Ave, Concord. I am in favor of option 1 as well. I think it is the most inclusive option for honestly, all sports. I realize pickleball has grown in popularity, but I am a frequent tennis player on the Rideout courts, and I very frequently also see tennis players as well. In fact, sometimes it's entirely tennis, but and the pickleball players tend to come frequently at the same time. They seem more organized. I would suggest if there is a conflict or if there is some sort of push in either direction, that there be a reservation system where we could potentially, somebody reserves a court for pickleball, reserves a court for tennis for hour-long periods. Neighboring towns do it. Like Lexington has a reservation system, Arlington has a reservation system. And I just think tennis is a time-tested sport. If we're going to have 25 years of a surface, I think that it should be pickleball is not as time-tested as that. So I'm just not convinced that having a less inclusive situation would be beneficial to all of Concord.
Dan Frost, 10 Orchard Road. Was there any consideration during this plan about the basketball courts too?
Yeah, I can answer that question. We're going to resurface the basketball courts as well, but we're not proposing to make any changes to what's there at the moment. They would just be striped and maintained the same way they are now.
And where do we go from here in terms of any more public forums for this? Or it seems like there's a lot that needs to be decided to get things going by May. So I'm just curious.
Stay tuned. I don't know the answer to that question yet, but we're going to hear what we have from everybody here tonight.
Great.
See where we go.
Thank you.
Mike Carey, Oak Hill Circle. I'm one of the leaders of and there are about 15 of the pickleball group that is self-organized at Rideout. One of our bugbears is the portable nets, and that takes at least portable nets. Option 1 continues with portable nets, which cost money and take time at the beginning and at the end of every session. We have sessions at Rideout, pickleball sessions at Rideout, organized by a leader who's there on every session, every day of the week, and at least 3 afternoons per week as well. I did an analysis of the attendance over the last 3 weeks, October 1st to 21st. The average attendance per day was 23 players, average. Ranged from 9, when the weather wasn't very good, to 38 on the biggest day. Pickleball is here to stay, and right now we have no permanent dedicated pickleball courts. That just doesn't seem to be fair. People have been talking about fairness. That just doesn't seem to be fair. we've been going for 10 years. It was thought by many that pickleball was a fad that wouldn't last. Clearly, it is lasting and it is growing and it continues to grow. A large number of courts now are becoming dedicated, and I think that this is a perfect opportunity for us in Concord to benefit from some dedicated pickleball courts.
Thank you.
Pat Cross, 80 Conant Street. I play pickleball and I play tennis. I don't play pickleball all that often at Rideout because most of the Rideout sessions are for intermediate or advanced players, and they really don't, lean into the more junior players. I don't know why that's so, but they don't. I think that we need to keep, since we are not going to expand, and I asked this at the beginning of the meeting, the footprint altogether, not necessarily at Rideout, but anywhere else in town, and increase the number of courts, or the potential number of courts. If that's not on the table, then I think that you have to maintain as much flexibility as possible. And for that reason, I think that I would support option one. And to get around the whole, erecting the small nets, in Acton, the nets, they have the wheel, the nets on wheels, and they keep them by the sides. Nobody steals them, nobody walks off with them. And so when you go to play pickleball, you just roll them over. And that's usually where I end up going to play. I play on Elm Street a lot. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I think we need to maintain flexibility on the courts. And to do that, the best option is option one.
Thank you. Chuck Slagan, 21 Old Mill. 2 things. I would say either 2 or 3. I'm going to say one's not even a feasibility for me. I'm sick and tired of playing on double-corded lines, and there are times when you just can't see one set of lines for the other. It's too confusing. I'm also very tired of setting up courts, nets, and whatnot. But the reason I say either 2 or 3, or with 2 or 3, first off, if there's not any desire to increase the footprint of the side that's there, both 2 and 3 decrease the amount of space in the outside perimeter for benches that are there that both tennis players and pickleball players use. There's also storage units where we store all this stuff. So my sense would be if we go with either 2 or 3, we're going to have to expect that somehow seating or we're going to bring our own chairs or something will be outside the tennis courts. But the storage box will also be out there. So I heard the idea of not increasing any footprint, but a storage box is an increase of footprint. So I'm either for 2 or
3. Thank you. Ann Scarzy, 33 Maple Street. I really appreciated the comments I heard about equity and accessible courts. And I do live on Maple Street. I'm not on the side that abuts Rideout, but I think 8 pickleball courts would be a lot to ask of neighbors whose backyards are right there. The sound of a pickleball racket hitting a pickleball compared to a tennis racket hitting a tennis ball is really different. And having 8 of those go at the same time, I definitely would vote for option 1, but if we even consider option 2, I think noise abatement should be in the budget and not considered later because I don't know why it wouldn't be needed. Thank you.
Anybody else? 2 more up front.
There's been a lot of conversation about equity, and I see equity different because I see all of the courts at the high school, which are...
Can you just state your name and address?
Oh, sorry, Alyssa Brown, 5 Concord Green. There's already 8 courts at the high school, tennis courts. 4, all right, so 4 courts there, 4 courts at Emerson, and whatever. There's a lot of courts on this side, on the other side of Route 2. And there's absolutely no place to play pickleball there. And, I've heard rumors over the years, I don't know if it's true, that Emerson will never become a pickleball court, whether because of the JV playing there or because of the neighbors or whatever. But, it does seem likely to me that there won't be pickleball courts, public courts, on the Concord Center side of town. So the only way to get pickleball courts is to put them in Rideout, where people have been playing for a long time, and the 2.5 miles from Concord Center to West Concord is not really a huge imposition for the players in town. Thank you.
Earl Smith, 537 Hayward Mill. I'd like to emphasize what Mike Carey said over there. There was a set of recommendations that was published in the Plan for Concord Recreational Facilities, I think last year, and it cited there's an organization that looks at how many facilities of various kinds a town might need based on its population and maybe its footprint. And the numbers for a town like Concord, they recommend 8 tennis courts and 6 pickleball courts. Right now, we have no pickleball courts. We may have 20 people show up there hoping to play pickleball, and 20 people on 6 courts is easy because we play doubles. But if there are 6 tennis players occupying those courts, then we have no pickleball courts. So I do think going to option 3 really would put Concord closer to the general recommendations for town recreational facilities.
Hey, Roberto Diaz, 21 Hawthorne Village. I wanted to say, if we are thinking of a surface that's gonna be still working 25 years from now, we gotta also think of kids. And I see at Rideout families with little kids starting in tennis all the time. Tennis has been one of the most successful sports in the U.S. globally, and it's a sport that can get a kid into a scholarship and go to school or whatever. I honestly think that completely getting rid of tennis courts is just cruel for the kids. I'm a parent, but there's gotta be something we gotta do to have both. Personally, I think option 1 pretty much is the only option. Yeah, there's lines that I understand it can be annoying. That's also annoying for tennis players too. We all have the same issue. But I think it's about inclusion and about, I guess, a win-win for everybody. People say we don't have pickleball courts, but actually you have 6. So my personal vote is just for number 1, and that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi.
2 more here.
Just 1 minute. Thank you. Vanessa Cito, 126 Old Marlboro. I am a tennis player. But I echo a lot of and I appreciate the comments about multi-use and keeping it for both pickleball and tennis. So I won't repeat some of the other comments there, but I wanted to make something separate about option 3, which has 1 tennis court. So that might seem like it's shared and but that's not great for a tennis player, right? You can't meet someone there and coordinate either singles or with 3 other people there to play doubles if there's only 1 option. The risk there is it becomes an underutilized court, which doesn't help anybody. So I just wanted to talk about really option 3 isn't as equitable as it appears to be, and it really creates a problem with that court not being that used. Because the tennis players that want to gather there, it's too risky. You're better off going to someplace else like Emerson or the high school. So option 1 to me is I really don't want to see tennis eradicated in West Concord. Option 1.
Hi, I'm Jen Pascucci, 291 Pope Road, and I love everyone getting outside, meeting over sports. I'm a fan of the community that it brings. I think it's vital. It keeps us alive. and happy, and that's what a true community is. So pickleball has had tremendous, tremendous growth. The desire to play is clearly here, and it's wonderful. Tennis also has had tremendous growth and continues to be on this track. There are 25 million tennis players in the U.S. right now, and they want to go to 35 million in 2035. So demand is big. Concord is a town that's not an average tennis town. It's a power tennis town. A lot of demand. It's from little kids to 80-plus-year-olds. So I would hate to exclude anyone from those opportunities. And I would also say a public free tennis court is vital. You don't want to exclude anyone. You need it to be free. You need it to be available. And you don't want to exclude either side. And so that's why I would say you need option one for the entire community.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Wendy Ravelli, 42 Bow Street. I just want to go back to that recreation study for just a moment and remind the community that in that study it said we had an overabundance of tennis courts for our population and that what we needed was pickleball, and we needed 6 permanent pickleball courts. So that, I believe, was the recommendation that was in that study. So I'll just, my option, my preference for option is option 3, which gives us the 6 permanent pickleball courts and preserves tennis in Rideout. There are options for more tennis, but I do think that that's a good compromise and something that would work very well for our players. Thanks.
Carol Kerr, 54 Old Stowe Road. Just more of a question. Aren't there tennis courts either at the middle school, junior high, or some of the elementary? Nothing at the new middle school.
I know I've spoken a few times. I just want to say one more thing, and this is more to the committee, and particularly you're like the head of the Recreation Committee, Chair. And I know you said that there's no plan in town to expand the number of courts, but clearly there's a demand and there's a need. And if you aren't going to put pickleball courts in Concord Center, you know, I have to agree as a tennis player that option 3 doesn't work. And my tennis buddies won't come over to Rideout to play tennis on a weekend because of the pickleball. And that's fine. But either you have to find, then you need to find more land, and you need to expand the footprint and not be rigid about not doing that.
I'll be stepping down from the commission when that conversation comes up. But I appreciate your point.
It really needs to be discussed, because that's one way to increase the number of courts, maintain both sports, and give people the space they need.
Vanessa Cito again, sorry, 126 Old Marlboro. Just one question, even slightly separate from this, but regardless of what option that we take, can there be a schedule, especially of pickleball? Because knowing when a group is going there and going to be there, especially if it's going to be a regular schedule, tennis players would love to know that, if there's still going to be some tennis on there. And other pickleball players not part of that group, I'm sure, would probably want to know that as well. So just if there's some way of having a schedule that's posted. That would be
we can certainly, we're not going to have that conversation now, but we can let people know what the current possibility is for reserving, where you can find out what's reserved or not reserved, et cetera. And at a separate time, we can consider a conversation about that. But that's not something for this evening, but it's noted, and we will certainly in the sort of the minutes from this meeting, we'll let people know what the current system is, and so that we can so that everybody knows that. Anybody else? Great. I want to thank all of you for coming. That was actually a very interesting conversation, very helpful to us. I'll add my 2 cents. Concord has a lot of wonderful recreational facilities. We're in a wonderful position to be able to have these conversations. Some of those recreation facilities that we have clearly need some work. As you mentioned earlier, someone mentioned earlier the facilities master plan process that we went through. One of the clear lessons that we got out of that was make better use of the things you've got, right? Use them to the best abilities you have before you start talking about building a whole bunch of new expensive facilities, et cetera, which we take very seriously. And I also take very seriously the value of all those other competing interests that are going on in those parks. They're wonderful places for lots of different things. We look forward to continuing this conversation with all of you. Thank you. You've given us some really good information. We'll circle back with our consultants and look at some of the various options. We'll publicize more information about how you reserve systems now, what information we're getting, what the process we're going to go through, and keep everybody posted. But thank you all very much for some really helpful observations. And I'm going to turn over to Lee for one moment.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out. I just wanted to remind you to please take your sticker if you do have an opinion for one of these drawings. It just gives us a visual if you can stick it before you leave. And I also want to say that we will be hosting a Rideout subcommittee public meeting in terms of making a recommendation, as Phil was saying. That is all of those meetings are public and they're on the calendar. There's no room for public comment in those meetings, but they are public and you can attend and you can look on the town calendar. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.